My boyfriend suddenly told me he wants to establish traditional gender roles once we get married. I have been with my boyfriend for 3 years now, and it has been wonderful. We have been talking about marriage lately, as it feels right for the both of us. Over the course of our relationship, we often talked about what our goals were and what we wanted our future together to look like. I was always vocal about how I wanted a more equal, non-traditional relationship. We both work, and we both don't want children. I expect to have a joint account with him and pay our expenses proportionally based on our income. I do make more than him, but I don't mind since I believe us to be a team. And for the last 3 years, he's agreed with me. Or so I thought. These past 2-3 weeks, we have been setting a timeline for our wedding plans and all. Basically, we are talking about all the concrete steps and little details. And so I asked him again what he wanted our marriage to be like, but in more detail. He suddenly told me that he wanted us to have traditional gender roles. And I was so confused. These past 3 years have not been that way. I am so confused about how he just expects us to change after marriage. I have been dating him and wanting to pursue something serious with him because I love our current dynamic, and he seemed happy too. I have made it clear since day one that I want to maintain what we have now forever. He has never told me that that was not the case for him. Now, do I feel tricked or lied to? He told me that although I make more of the income, he wants to be the man of the house. The leader goes, and so what he says goes. He has the final say in the decisions, and I cannot be questioning him. I told him this would lead to me not being heard and being miserable. It will make me feel less valued. He says it's the best way to avoid arguments. Sure, less arguments, because what I think wouldn't matter, but I will build resentment, and then it's no longer a happy marriage. In my previous post, I mentioned that I have seen him binge watching alpha male podcasts recently, and I don't know if he has always thought this way or if it's recent. All I know is that my whole body is telling me this is not it. I cannot marry him. It sounds like trouble, but am I correct for thinking this way? I don't know why, but the last 3 years have been so wonderful that it's so hard for me to wrap my head around this. This sudden switch, please give me some advice and courage. Relevant comments. Wheelie90210. It sounds like you never really knew him. He sounds like he's always been a misogynist. You just never got a clear and direct answer from him. You say you were always vocal about what you wanted, but was he? You never mentioned if he agreed with you. You said you asked him again, which shows you never had a solid answer, yet you both still talked about marriage. Did you both agree on things, or was he passively acknowledging them? This doesn't sound like a sudden switch. This sounds like he was passive, and now he's actively acting in his own best interests. It's just that it's come to crunch time. Maybe when you look back at your first interactions with him, you'll notice the pattern of passivity on his part. Not saying that this is the case or that it's on you, but it's that the signs were always there. It's just not easy to recognize them. Women, especially, are conditioned to tolerate a lot of things because being single as a woman is the worst thing ever to alpha males as it happens. Be wary of what you think is right for you and what's expected of you. OP, I think you are right, actually. There were many times when he would just nod. And if I directed a question at him, he'd answer vaguely to kind of match mine and deflect. I think that made me think he agreed, especially since he never said anything opposing it and he clearly knew my position. I think I just expected people to be honest and gave him the benefit of the doubt. I'm naive, I guess. Thanks for your response. Dwells2301. This seems unrealistic. People change as they mature. Life and circumstances change. You need to be able to grow and change too. OP, of course, I meant in the sense of the equality aspect of the relationship. As we grow and are thrown obstacles, we can still be a team and work things out. No one is below the other. Each person is valued equally, heard, and loved. Mustang19671967. Maybe go to counseling. He may be watching these because he feels disrespected. I don't know. It just must be a reason he just started listening to the podcast. This is a huge deal. So you need to figure something out or break up because these are two totally different mentalities in marriage. OP, he is unfortunately not into the idea of counseling. Although, in the past 3 years, he said he was. Recently, his mind seems to have changed a lot. Update. Thank you all for your responses. I wanted to update you guys on what happened and hopefully answer some of your questions along the way. I don't live with him or have any shared assets. He also explicitly said that he expects me to continue working, so I guess he wanted the best of both worlds. And before we started dating, I was hesitant due to our age gap. I have heard of horror stories, so I have been very careful about power dynamics. But he was amazing for the last 3 years, so I did put my defenses down eventually. My friends and family also liked him. They always said we genuinely seemed happy together and complimented each other well. On to what happened. He came over to my house the night I posted on Reddit, which isn't unusual. We spend most nights together after work. I knew I had to break up but didn't know how to yet. I was still debating if I should ask him more questions or just end it. And if I end it, do I tell him everything or keep it concise? Luckily, he did not suspect anything so far, so it took me some time to figure out my next step. As soon as he came in, though, he tried to initiate intimacy, and I said no since I was not in the mood. He got angry. He has never done this before. We have always had a very healthy, fulfilling sexual relationship. But now, he kept trying to convince me to have sex with him and asked me why I was putting my needs over his. I can just force myself to do it for the sake of our relationship. I said that I wasn't feeling well. I know I shouldn't even have to justify it. He said that even if I'm not feeling well, it's not an excuse. I was disgusted. I fell out of love that instant. I mean, I was already in the process of it, but this really did it. I also felt very unsafe. I stood my ground and told him that this is not consensual, and that someone's health is more important than his need for sex. I kept repeating it until he eventually stopped pushing, but he didn't leave my place until an hour later. I was afraid to anger him again by telling him to leave, so I just stayed quiet, doing stuff around the apartment, until he decided to leave. Luckily, nothing happened to me, but wow. I told my friends and family everything. They supported me in my decision to break up and helped me prepare my speech. I asked him to meet me in a public space the next day, as one of the comments suggested. My friends were nearby, keeping an eye. He was still angry at me because I haven't been talking to him and I refused sex. He asked me why I expect him to take care of me when I'm unwell, but I didn't give him sex yesterday. I decided not to waste my breath explaining something so basic. I went on with my breakup speech as prepared, where I told him everything, how disrespectful he's been, all the podcast stuff, etc. He suddenly looked so scared and begged me to take him back. He said he understands what I'm saying, that I'm right about the podcasts, and that he will work on them. He was trying to convince me not to break up, but I did not believe anything he said. I held my ground and told him there was no room for discussion, it's over, and I left. Now I feel a weight lifted, but I am also heartbroken. I know this was the right thing to do. I just feel defeated. I wake up so anxious and feel like crying constantly. I am barely eating. I am seeing a therapist next week to help cope. If you guys have words of encouragement and maybe success stories about meeting your person, I'd love to hear them. Thank you all sincerely. You all helped me find courage and strength in my time of need. Thank you for watching the video.